Hello, so today I'm going to go over how to do the 4 methods for Chapter 4, those being Hamilton, Jefferson, Adams, and Webster. The easiest way to do them is to go into your Google Drive and click the New button and start a Google Sheets. Now, I've already started one, so I don't have to take the time to type all the populations in. So all you have to do is for each method, I would highlight what you're doing. So Hamilton's method here, I'm going to show you how to do that one. Jefferson's method here. And notice along the side, I have the steps that we need to follow for each one. So Jefferson's method, for example, has the state population, the standard quota, the lower quota, and I'll show you how to do those in a second. The standard divisor, modified divisor, modified divisor, okay? And the other ones follow the same kinds of principles. So the first method we do is Hamilton's method. And they're going to give us all this information right here, the states with the populations of each. From there on is where we have to know what to do. So the first thing we need to do is go ahead and total up all of the populations. So to do that, you can just click the equals button, type the word sum, S-U-M, and then parentheses where you do shift 9. Then all you do is drag each of your populations. Keep in mind, make sure it's only the populations. Don't include the total row when you drag it, just the states. Close your parentheses and click enter. And it's going to add up those populations for you. The next step we need to do in every one of the examples is to find the standard divisor. So to find the standard divisor, all you have to do is click equals, click on your total population that you just found, and divide that by the number of seats, okay? So don't actually click on this one because it's going to be confusing. It's not just the number, but just type in the number of seats. In this case, they told us there are 75 seats. So whatever M is equal to in our problems, that's the number of seats, so 75 seats. That gives us a standard divisor of 720, okay? So we call that the SD. Next, we have to find each state's population. To do that, we click equals, click on the state population, divide that by the standard divisor that we just found. And we go ahead and do that for each state. Equals, click on the population, divided by, click on the standard divisor. Okay, so equals, click on the population, the slash button, standard divisor. We're going to do that for each one. Now make sure you're just doing that for the states again. Under the total, we're going to sum those up. And you should get the number of seats that you started with when you add up the standard quotas. That means you did it right. If you get the number of seats, that means you've done it right so far. Next in line for Hamilton is to do the lower quota. Okay, so the lower quota means no matter what the decimal is, we round down to the nearest whole number. So 21.4 rounds down to 21, 17.1 rounds down to 17, 16.5 rounds down to 16, 13.2 rounds down to 13, and 6.6 rounds down to 6. Again, you need to sum these up. So I take equals sum parentheses, add them up. Notice, I've only given out 73 seats so far, but I'm supposed to give out 75 seats. So this is where Hamilton's method kicks in, and Hamilton said, okay, we're going to give out those surplus seats, those 2 extra seats that we have left to give out. And we're going to give them to the biggest decimals. So notice this one's decimal is 41, this one's decimal is 14, this is 50, this is 24, this is 69. Okay, so the biggest decimal gets the first surplus seat, and since we only have one other surplus seat to give out, the second biggest decimal is 50, they get the second surplus seat. So that leaves us with a final of 21 seats, 17 seats, 17 seats, 13 seats, and 7 seats. Take a quick second just to sum these up. Make sure you now have the 75 seats required to give out. That's Hamilton's method. Okay? And again, the directions for Hamilton's are right here. Next is Jefferson's method. Okay? So Jefferson's method, we're going to do the same thing, total population, and I'll redo that real quick. So the total population equals sum, parentheses, drag, close them. All right, there's our total population. Again, you have to do the standard divisor, so equals, click on that total population, divide it by 75. You have to actually type the 75 in. Again, do the SQs, so equals, click on the population, divided by the standard divisor. Okay, so you can do that for each one. And this saves us a lot of time over doing it by hand with a calculator. And then sum them up. All right, so we've done it right so far. Jefferson, again, says to do lower quota, just like Hamilton said to do. So that's going to be 21, 17, 16, 13, and 6. And we're going to sum them up. Now notice, I have highlighted this spot right here because we want this lower quota to add up to 75, right? That's our goal, is to get whole numbers, no decimals, to add up to 75. Well, this is where Jefferson gets different than Hamilton. Jefferson says, okay, instead of just giving out those 2 extra seats like we did with Hamilton, we're going to change our divisor so that when we do the lower quota, it's exactly 75. So I'm going to keep track of my standard divisor, 720.5. I'm going to round it to 1 decimal spot. And now we need to start guessing modified divisors. So it might seem crazy just to start guessing, but we can use a little intuition here. If the number of seats we have, 73, is less than the number of seats we're supposed to have, 75, then we guess a little lower. So I'm going to guess 700 for my first modified divisor. That's what we call these MDs. So now watch this. I go over here and type 700 in, and when I click enter, you're going to notice all my standard quotas are going to change. Okay, so they all changed. Don't worry about this number. We're not worried about that number. Remember, we want this number to be 75. So when I type 700 in, all my standard quotas changed, so I need to go ahead and change my lower quotas by hand. Now this one's 22, that's still 17, that's still 16, that's still 13, that's still 6. So I'm still too low, right? I only have 74 seats so far. I have to give out 75 seats. So it's still too low, so I have to guess a little bit lower than 700. I'm going to guess 685. So again, I type 685 in over here. I click enter, and I have to redo my lower quotas. So that one's still 22. That one is now 18. That one is now 17. That one's 13, and that one is now 7. Uh-oh, now I'm too big, right? Now I have too many seats. I'm only supposed to have 75. I've given out 77. So again, I need to come up with another modified divisor. I'm going to call it modified divisor 3. And now I have to guess something bigger than 685, but less than 700. So I'm going to guess 695. I'm going to guess pretty close to 700. Okay, so I'm going to write 695 over here too to make sure I remember what I did. Okay, that lower quota is still 22, but that one changed back to 17. That one's still 17. That one's still 13, but this one now changes to 6. And notice my highlighted area is now 75, which is the number of seats I'm supposed to have. So boom, my modified divisor 3 of 695 gave me the required number of seats. When you're turning this in on your homework, what I need you to do is write down all of that stuff. So I want you to write down the SQs when you got your final answer, the lower quotas when you get your final answer, and all the guesses you did. The next method is Adams' method. Okay, so everything stays the same, and I'm going to show you a trick here, how to keep everything the same, population standard divisor. Watch this. So I'm going to go back to Hamilton's method because remember, I haven't changed anything, and I'm going to do Control-C. That copies all of that. I can go ahead and put that right down here in the same spot, and notice it does all that work for me again, so I don't have to do it again. If you're still struggling with finding the standard divisor and the standard quotas, rewind the video and watch how I did it in the first two. Okay, so now I'm doing Adams' method. I did the same thing, found my standard divisor, found my standard quotas, but now this is where Adams is different than Jefferson. Adams says do the upper quota, meaning no matter what the decimal is, you round this number up to the next number. So 21.4 rounds up to 22, 17.1 rounds all the way up to 18, 16.5 rounds up to 17, up to 14, up to 7, and then we have to sum them up. Now again, I highlighted that spot right there because I want my upper quotas now to add up to 78. We're only supposed to have 75. Right now we're at 78. So remember, this is too big. This is bigger than the number of seats. So I need to guess bigger than 720.5. I'm going to keep track of 720.5. And I'm going to guess bigger than 720.5. I'm going to guess 745, right? That's a little bit bigger than 720.5. So again, I type 745 over